Welcome back, everyone, to the PA the FI Way podcast. I'm your host, Kat, and today we have a very special guest joining us. We have Jillian, and she's going to share about how you can consider retiring often throughout your career, as well as about her new book. Welcome to the show, Jillian. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Let's get started with sharing a little bit about yourself.
So I started kind of my financial journey. My spouse and the time I was 19. We had like $55,000 of debt. And, it was funny. Someone randomly, not even a financial person, someone randomly said, hey, you guys should think about saving one of your incomes. Like, you've been living on your own separately, you're going to move in together, get married, like, you should just try to live off one income. And there was something about that that really resonated with me. We had all this debt. We weren't going to high earning careers. And so that's kind of how we started, and trying to save half and pay down the debt and start to invest. But because we didn't have high earning careers, I assumed we would never be able to retire early. So I got this idea of kind of sabbatical years, mini retirements in my head. And now I'm 42 and I've taken a dozen of them kind of along the journey.
Love that. Where have some of your favorite mini retirements been?
Mini retirements are funny. They're kind of like a Swiss Army knife. They have lots of different functions. So I've used them for lots of different things. But as far as destinations, I would say I did a 10-week road trip to 10 national parks with my kiddos in a pop-up camper. This was probably, I guess, 7 years ago. And I don't know, they were all just like itsy bitsy. And I look back at the pictures a lot of us in all of these different parks, and they're like 2 years old and 4 and 5. And now they're all like junior high kids and high school kids. And it's just, it was a really, really sweet trip, partly through that trip, I was like, this has an expiration date. Like, we were in the pop-up camper. My oldest, I think, was 11. And he was kind of like, do we have Wi-Fi? Like, is there going to be Wi-Fi in Yosemite? And I'm like, nope, buddy, there's not. And he's like, I really want to talk to my friends. And I'm like, yeah, no, I get that. And I was like, oh, this is coming to a close. Like, we couldn't do this trip in 20 years. We couldn't do this trip in 10 years. Like, when they're all in their 20s, there's no way all 5 of them are going to pile into a pop-up camper with me and cruise around the US for 10 weeks. So yeah, that one feels extra special.
It's awesome. And definitely seeing our country through the national park system is an excellent form of travel. So that sounds super exciting. Let's dial back a little bit and better define what a mini retirement is. Could you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I define a mini retirement by having 3 characteristics. The first is it's a month or longer. I find a month is kind of the minimum effective dose. And a lot of people do 6 months or a year or 2 years, which is awesome. But at least a month or longer is the first characteristic. The second is stepping away from your 9 to 5, from your primary career, and kind of getting that break, which is also to say that it doesn't mean people don't do anything that feels professional. Sometimes people volunteer or, do research as kind of like a normal kind of college sabbatical. Sometimes people explore other career options, or do training or certifications. Like, there's lots of cool things you can do, but stepping away from kind of that 9 to 5. And then the third characteristic is to focus on something that matters to you, something that's important and meaningful, and hopefully enjoyable, but at least meaningful.
Yeah, lots of different ways that people can use mini retirements. What are some examples of those ways that you've worked with those that have taken mini retirements over the years?
Yeah, like I said, I've done a dozen, but I've worked with hundreds of people, one-on-one coaching, group coaching. I speak at a lot of events, and it's been wonderful and amazing to kind of walk alongside people as they do this. One, because it's life-changing, but it's also a little scary. So kind of adds to the fun. But I try to think about mini retirements in kind of 3 different categories. There's kind of our personal life. And so that might be recovering from burnout, time with people we love, our family, our friends, investing in hobbies, investing in our health, doing those things that kind of make us better humans and make our human experience better. But then two other categories that sometimes people don't think about is using it to improve your career trajectory, as like a bonus for your career, and using it to improve your path to financial independence. And so I think people automatically go to like massive adventure, like around the world trip, which mini retirements can be a wonderfully epic vacation in that sense, but you can use them for a lot of different things depending where you are in your journey. And I always encourage people to think about like what's urgent and important right now. Like what's
Sure.
the thing you need to do next? Which is why, I called my book Retire Often, not like take one massive mini retirement throughout your working lives. Like, no, we're not going to do all the things in one mini retirement, but retiring often and giving each one like a distinct function and usefulness.
That's great. I really love that concept too, because we are programmed to think that you just have to push through grinding away at least a 40-hour work week until your mid 60s. But life doesn't happen that way, right? So it's a really beautiful way of looking at life and recognizing that it is okay to step back and take a pause and do something else that's away from your traditional work role for a period of time. I'm curious, could you share what the high-level view of the 4 steps of a mini retirement look like?
Yeah, mini retirements, it's funny. Sometimes people are like, as long as I'm not working, I'll be happy. And happiness is, I think, one part reducing suffering absolutely improves our happiness. And if your work is making you suffer, then like that's a good step. But then the other part is adding things that are meaningful. And so that's kind of thinking through the first step. How do we organize our time in a way that this is going to be meaningful and enjoyable? So the first step is like planning this time away and partly thinking through all of the things that we want to do, but then also narrowing it down. What makes sense? What is that urgent? What is that important? What makes sense for the next one? Through the book, I kind of go through different tools to think through financially. How should we organize these financially? Perhaps front loading the ones that are a little bit more affordable and saving the more expensive ones for later in life. How should we think through it in terms of like our capability? What things it's not just our capability, but our preference. The things that we would enjoy in our 20s are maybe different than we would enjoy in our 40s. And they're maybe different again that we would enjoy in our 60s. So leaning into like each decade in life and doing the things that you would enjoy in that decade, especially if like, this might not be forever. I interviewed Jill Collins and about how he's done multiple mini retirements, but he did one biking through Ireland and he would just sleep on the side of the road by his bike. No tent, no anything, just in the grass. And I don't know, Ireland, it rains, but like every other day. And I was just like, he's like, yeah, I know. I like luxury hotels now. Like I'm not sleeping on the ground on the side of the road, but he loved it and it was amazing. And he's like, yeah, I'm not doing it again. So thinking through your capability, but also your preferences for different decades. So that's kind of step 1. Step 2, I go into employment because people are like, yeah, cool. I love the idea of mini retirements, but I've got all of these questions. I've got all of this hesitation. I've got these fears. There's logistical challenges. And one of the joys of working one-on-one with people is that you have to give people specific advice. Because I'm like, okay, yeah, just, go ask for the time off. And they're like, wait, how do I do that? And I'm like, just make it good. They're like, yeah, okay, what exactly does that sound like? Exactly am I going to say? So in the book, I really tried to give people the exact formula. If you're not sure what to say, if you're not sure how to negotiate it, if you're not sure what this process should look like, here's exactly what you need to do step by step. So it's all about employment because that can be a big concern. And the third one is finances. How do we, and I do it kind of in 2 parts, like how do we afford this next one? But also when people take a mini retirement, they're like, oh, this was good. this was really good. Actually, I need to do a lot more of these. So how do we start thinking about our finances in a way that enables us to truly retire often, to build this into the rhythm of our careers and afford this long term? And then step 4 is navigating the journey. It's for most people, their friends aren't taking mini retirements, their family isn't. They're the only one doing this. And so their experience can feel incredibly unique to them. And the challenges that they face can feel incredibly unique, but they're very common. They're super common. And I've heard all of them. I've seen all of them and their solutions. Like if you know, and it's like not a huge deal, but if you're caught off guard by a couple of these things, it can create what I call unnecessary emotional suffering. There is some necessary emotional suffering out there in the world, but this kind of stuff is unnecessary. We can just avoid it altogether.
Certainly. And what I love not only about the concept of pursuing financial independence with having the option to retire early, but also these ideas of mini retirements and retire often, is that if you open your mind and learn about other people doing these things, then it's not as uncommon or as unusual or as quote unquote weird that you might initially think that it is. And you can definitely find a really great community so you feel less alone and give you even more courage to do these things. So I love that you are sharing with others that it's absolutely doable and people actually do these things.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, my hope with writing the book was that I know I can help people one-on-one. Like, I know if you have a little bit of vision and a little bit of courage, like, we can absolutely do this. But with the book, I want to create a systematic change in how we approach our careers in that work culture. And honestly, I think that these sabbaticals, these little mini retirements, are the path going forward. I think in 20, 30 years, they'll be as common as the idea of like a weekend or a 2-week vacation. Like it's such a part of how we operate in our careers. Yeah, for the people who are a little nervous or a little like uncomfortable, I want to make it easy for them too, not just the people that I work one-on-one with.
And you've touched a little bit on the employment concerns, financial questions, all those things already. I have a few more of those for you. Could you share how retiring often can actually benefit the listener's employment and income if they do decide to step away for some of these mini retirements?
Yeah, there's a number of things at play. And it sounds really counterintuitive at first because you're like, wait, I'm stepping away from my career. I'm not working. I'm not earning money. I'm not saving money. I'm maybe spending more money. Like all of like the easy math says, well, this should be a detriment. But there's a couple other factors happening here. And a lot of studies show that our best opportunity for getting a significant raise, not like a 2% or a 4% raise, but like a 5, a 10, a 15, 20% raise is when we switch employers. Our best opportunity for getting a true promotion into kind of a higher level skill set is when we switch employers. And so for a lot of people, not taking mini retirements, not planning this in, like, hey, I'm going to take one every 3 or 4 years. I'm going to take 3 months off or 6 months off. I'm going to switch employers. I'm going to up level. It actually massively decreases your lifetime earning potential. And I have a story from a friend of mine who took a mini retirement, like a year off. And when he went back into the workforce, he got a 50% raise over his last salary, which on the surface sounds awesome. Yeah, it's not awesome though, because the reason he got a 50% raise is he had been at his last employer for 15 years, which means he was underpaid for a long time. And kind of a math nerd, if we do like some quick math on that, let's assume he was earning $100,000 and he came back at $150. It means he was underpaid $50,000, let's say for maybe half of that time, 8 years. So that's $400,000. Let's say it cost him $100,000 to take his year off. It didn't, but let's say it did. That's $300,000. If he would have that invested at 40, that's $1 million By the time he gets to retirement, he left $1 million on the table because he enjoyed his life less because he didn't take all these mini retirements. And so I think being really strategic about that. And like I said, mini retirements can serve lots of different functions. For a lot of people, they can be wealth building activities. So the house I'm in right now was actually my spouse and I at the time took a month off and we bought this house as a rental. And I think there's a lot of people that, they're like, man, I've got this thing I want to do. Maybe it's a side hustle. Maybe it's real estate. Maybe this is this idea that they've been cooking that they think could be cool, but they don't have the time and they don't have the bandwidth and they don't have the energy. If you took a little bit of time off and gave yourself the runway to do something, we bought this house, like 12 years ago. So quick math, we bought it for about 100. We put about another 100 into it. So we're about 200 grand into this. It's now worth 500,000. So that 1 month off increased the net worth $300,000. So you can, especially if you're early in your financial journey and you're kind of trying to hustle to get ahead, you can use them as wealth building activities. You can also use them as career building activities. A mini retirement is a great opportunity to get extra training, to get extra certifications, to think about a career pivot, to, just start kind of your own business, to start consulting. If you want to expand those career options, but a lot of people, honestly, demanding job, demanding personal life, there's not time, there's not energy. And many retirements, I think, in the book, I have a chapter of why this is good for employers, why every employer should give every employee a month off every year. But one of those reasons is it creates the opportunity for equality in the workplace for employees that have more demanding personal lives, who can't do the extra training, who can't do the conferences, who can't do the certifications. It gives them the opportunity to stay on pace with their peers who maybe have more support or less demands on them at home. So you can invest them in that way as well.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely lots of things to think about there. And there's so many ways that these mini retirements can be used. And I really like how you touched on that. It even can just be a time and a place to have the bandwidth to think, right? So many people that I've worked with that are PAs or other healthcare professionals, they are just constantly so busy, and whether it's with work or kids or other family members, and they just don't have any time to think about what they actually want to do with their lives or anything that they're interested in beyond just getting through day to day. So it can be a really great space for that as well.
Yeah, that's another factor is the capacity to recover from burnout. In a lot of professions, being really good at your job matters. The outcomes matter. And if you can recover from burnout, it's kind of like, I used to play basketball in high school, and middle of the game, we take a halftime. Not because we're lazy, not because we don't care about winning, not because we're unmotivated or undedicated to the game. We care because we're very motivated and we're very dedicated to the outcomes. And we want that opportunity to rest and to recover and to reimagine the second half of this game. And because we're so motivated, we value that rest to an extreme degree. And I think for people who are ambitious and who really care about the outcomes, taking your rest seriously, it's such a different mindset. I used to work commission sales, and whenever people were going through something tough in their personal life, if they're going through a divorce or whatever, you couldn't tell. You couldn't tell when they came into work, and you couldn't really tell in their client interactions. They just seemed like themselves, but that energy was just a little bit different. Their sales were half as much, because sometimes a little different makes a big difference. And it's like if you run the 400-meter sprint, if you're 10% faster than everyone, you don't win 10% more races. You win all the races. And, it's interesting. There's a plastic surgeon I follow on Instagram, and he does all of his surgeries in 1 week. And he does this insane routine for surgery week. He has this very strict sleep schedule. He has this meditation schedule, this red light schedule. He does a specific diet. He does all of these things to really help his focus, his concentration, to keep himself really regulated, because the outcomes matter a lot. Being a little bit better makes a big difference. And when you really care about those outcomes, like, invest in the stuff that makes you your best self. That doesn't mean that you're weak or undedicated. It means that you really care about your craft and you really care about your outcomes.
Absolutely. I'm really glad that we're touching on burnout. Burnout is absolutely rampant amongst us healthcare professionals and also certainly in other industries as well. I'm curious, how do you feel as though mini retirements can be used not only to recover from burnout, but how can they best use their time to do that during the mini retirements?
Yeah, burnout's fascinating, partly because we don't really know how to recover from it. And this sounds strange, but people don't know what to expect the recovery to look like. And I see it go off the rails a lot because what they're experiencing does not match their expectations of what they thought they would experience. And it can create this really weird thought pattern. I'll tell you that because I've heard this inside narrative dozens of times and it's like so consistent. And so when we talk about like unnecessary emotional suffering, this is so much unnecessary and emotional suffering. So it goes like this. People are super burned out. They take time off. They're recovering from burnout and they start to feel really tired. They start to feel unmotivated. They're not getting much done. They don't have tons of energy because they're recovering from burnout. And they go, oh my gosh, am I lazy? I'm just so tired all the time. I don't even want to get out of bed. Like, I thought I was a motivated human being. I thought I was disciplined, but apparently not. Maybe I can only function at work. Maybe I have to have that structure. Maybe I have to have that discipline, because left to my own devices, look at me. I'm just like a sloth. Like, I'm not accomplishing all the things I thought I would accomplish. This is all nonsense. Like, if you were recovering from the flu and you were in bed and you like cannot get yourself to unload the dishwasher and you're like so fatigued, you wouldn't go, I'm a worthless human being. Look at me. I have no discipline. I can't even motivate myself. Why am I so tired? No, because you're recovering from the flu. Like, that's what you do. You feel tired and you lay in bed. And so this is part of like that step 4. I say, yeah, you can tell yourself that story. Or you could say, wow, I'm a lot more tired than I expected to be. Good thing I'm on a mini retirement. End of story. Like, that's it. And you lay down and you take a nap and you feel better. So I encourage people to have a plan for recovering from burnout. Like, don't wing it. I have a plan for all of this, honestly. Like, mini retirements, they're too much hassle. They're too much expense. They're too much effort to just be like, oh, wing it. It'll be great. No. Buy the book. Follow the steps. Do not wing it. But for recovering from burnout, I encourage people to look at like, what are activities that you find restful, and come up with a list of like 10 or 15 of them. And this could be calling your mom, taking a bath, going for a walk, meditating, out to lunch with friends, like reading a book, whatever it is for you. It doesn't have to be crazy stuff. You don't have to like go rock climbing or something, but just what's an activity that you find restful, and then plan to do 4 to 7 of those a day. Just fill your day with things that regulate your nervous system, that make you feel refreshed, that give more energy than they take from you. Because that'll actually help you recover. And it'll also, if you have this plan and you have this written out, especially for kind of high achieving type A people who are used to accomplishing a lot, it will give you permission to do these things. You'll have your 7 things on your list, which might include take a nap and take a bath and read a book and go for a walk and go out to lunch with a friend. And then you'll do them and you'll go, okay, I did the thing I was supposed to do. Where for some people, if they don't have any structure, especially if they go from having a lot to none, as is not a recipe for success, they can feel very untethered and very anxious and always like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing right now. What should I be doing? I'm not sure what I should be doing. Should I take a nap? No, naps are lazy. What should I read a book? No, reading books for lazy people. Like, what should I be doing? And it creates this like low grade anxiety of never feeling like they're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Working in mental health, I find all of the psychology behind this super fascinating, and the importance of active rest and
Mm.
positive self-talk and things like that too, and not be so harsh with yourself with the words that you use to describe yourself.
Oh
And
my
that
gosh,
concept of
yeah.
active rest that you described a couple of episodes ago, I shared that there was a speaker at our national PA conference, and he was talking about rhythmic renewal as burnout
Mm.
prevention and treatment, intentionally building in 5-minute rest periods throughout your day and
Hmm.
creating a menu of what that looks like. And
Yeah.
exactly how you're describing it. What does that look like for you? What fills
Yep.
you up? What helps make you feel more rejuvenated? And then look at that as a form of productivity. That's okay
Hmm.
to rest, to be productive, and to view that as a way to rejuvenate and help with burnout treatment and prevention. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm also curious, what other ways do people use sabbaticals or mini retirements to focus on their overall health? And how is that more advantageous than trying to do that while you are working in your traditional role?
It can be easy for there to be so much shame and guilt around not being able to do all the things, not being limitless, and to say, hey, there's these things that are important to me, important to my well-being, and maybe I can't just add them on top of the other 800 things I'm doing and do them well. And I think especially for me, I mean, it's true for both genders, but sometimes maybe even more so for women, like just do more. Just do more. Like why, like don't need anything, just add more. Unlimited. I took some time off maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I realized I was about 40 and I was like, oh, this 40-year-old body is different than my 20-year-old body. Huh. I think it needs different foods. I have this hunch it might need vegetables now. Like I can't just eat candy for breakfast. I think it needs like strength training. I don't know how to take care of it. And what worked for my 20-year-old body wasn't working for my 40-year-old body. And there again, it's easy as a woman to be like, well, just take care of all 5 of your kids and do all the things and run your business and, figure out your nutrition and figure out meal prepping and learn how to weight train and learn how to add more steps and learn like the proper diet and just do all of that all at the same time. And I was like, no, like this is not working. I need some time to like legitimately focus on this and get through the learning curve so that I can maintain these new habits, this new information moving forward. And it's such a gift to be like, actually, I care about like how I take care of my body. Like this is an important thing to figure out because I'm stuck with this for a long time, hopefully. But I also, in my 20s, I took a month off to do a month of like intense outpatient therapy. And it was like 6 hours a day. And if you've ever done like an hour of therapy a day, it's exhausting. Doing 6, I was like a zombie. Like that was literally all I did. I slept and I ate and I did therapy for a month. But it was so incredible in that it was like a whole house renovation. It was like, you know what? Let's just go all the way down to the studs. Let's fix the foundation. Let's new electrical, new plumbing. And I really think about my 20s, like when I delineate that time is before that month and after that month.
Sure.
And it wasn't that the month did all the work. Like if you've ever done therapy, it's not that it like finishes the work, but it was such a strong start that my personal growth trajectory after that month, I mean, if you look at it on a graph, it is radically different. And I still, like 15 years later, benefit from that shift, from that like capital investment that put me on a whole different trajectory. And part of the reason many retirements are life-changing is that we're changed during the time and we come out different, and you can't come out different and then just live your old life. You come out different and life has to be different to match it. And so thinking about what are those aspects of our personal life, of our health, of our well-being that for us as individuals, like we actually legitimately really care about. And what if we took a month? What if we took 2 months? Kind of a fun one. Last year, I took a month off to learn tango. I spent $1,000. Many retirements don't have to be expensive. I spent $1,000. I took a month to learn tango because I met this guy who was like so cool. I think he's 75, maybe 80, but like he knows all the social dances. He is so, when you think about like 75-year-olds, I tend to think about a decline in mental capacity, a decline in physical capacity, a decline in social network, decline in friendships, decline in activities. He's crushing it in all of them. He knows all the social dances. He's so good. He's so sharp. He's friends with everyone. Like he goes to like dance events and he dances till like 6 a.m. and he's like so active. And I just thought, I don't even want to be like this dude when I'm 75. Like, I want to be like this dude now. He's crushing it in every area. He is outpacing me in every part of life. And I thought about, what about my 80-year-old self? What would she want? What would be good for her? And yeah, when she's 80, she was like, yeah, I want that many friends. I want to be that physically active. I want to be that agile. I want to be that mentally sharp. I want to be doing all these cool activities. I want to have a packed social calendar. Like, please, yeah, take a month, spend $1,000. That is nothing compared to the benefits that she'll receive. And so giving yourself kind of that permission, that gift.
Thank you so much for sharing all those stories. They're all quite interesting to hear your perspective for sure. And like you touched on, it can take time to figure out what works for you as an individual, whether it comes to physical health or mental health. So be able to have that space to work through that. And I really enjoy talking about, even though this is a finance show, quote unquote, technically finance, right? Your finances, your financial health impact your mental health. Your mental health impacts your financial health. Your physical health impacts your mental health and financial health and social health and all of the healths, right? They're all so interconnected. So I absolutely love that you are sharing that information with my listeners as well, because there are so many different ways that you can make changes, and they don't always have to be giant changes. They can be pretty small changes that really compound over time and really are investments for your future too. Do you mind sharing how you have been able to implement exercising while you were traveling? How did you make that work overall?
Yeah, there's a modality of exercise for like any situation. And there again, for me, it was that investment of figuring that out. So I started working with a personal trainer of like, how can I exercise when I'm outside? And I have no weights. Like I've got my body weight, I've got bands. Like that's what I can travel with, because anyone can travel with bands. Like carry-on bag, you can still bring a band, but definitely in a camper. But taking that time to learn like, what are these movements? How can I get really good form? What's a good variety? I still like 4-5 years later, I still work with her twice a week. Now I work out at home. I haven't actually even been to a gym in like almost 5 years. I realized I love lifting weights, but I'm really sensitive to noise. So having like it be really noisy and kind of chaotic, especially like random noises like weights dropping, which in a weight room happens a lot, like kind of agitates my nervous system. So learning to work out at home and yeah, just figuring that out. I think I realized for me, walking enough every day is super helpful for my mental health, my emotional health, but also my physical health. And yeah, just taking that, take that time to invest in like, how can this work for me? Because I think it's easy to say, well, this will be a challenge or this will be a problem, therefore I won't do it, instead of like, what are some solutions and how can I put a little bit of time into figuring out those solutions?
Definitely. And if some of the people who do take mini retirements develop these new habits and learn these solutions for themselves, how can they continue to make them sustainable once they go back to their busy lives, their busy work, their 9-to-5 jobs overall?
I think the great thing about mini retirements, because you have so much more, not just time, but you have mental and emotional bandwidth. The learning curve for things is so hard. Like getting through the learning curve takes a disproportionate amount of time and energy. Learning a new style of eating. Like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I started doing kind of low inflammation, partly for my physical health, largely for my mental health. And it took some time. Like, what do I feed myself? What don't I feed myself? Like, how do I prepare these meals? Like, what does this shopping look like? What does this cooking look like? And so you go through this learning curve, but then to maintain that isn't so hard. Once you kind of get the habit up and going, then it's easier to maintain. And I think this is true for whether it's a style of eating or a mental health, like learning a meditation habit, learning mindfulness, like for me, that's like the hardest. It's so difficult. But once I get the hang of it, maintaining that in small ways, and kind of like the conference that you were at, it doesn't have to be a huge habit. Maintaining those 1-minute habits, maintaining those 5-minute habits can make such a huge difference. I think there is this temptation to be like, go big or go home. And the reality is like, you don't. There's so much benefit in between. I do not work out 60 minutes 5 days a week. I lift weights 25 minutes 2 days a week. That's it. And if I'm feeling really ambitious, I'll do an extra 10 minutes here or there. If I so feel motivated for it. But like it doesn't have to be this huge, massive habit to get enough benefits. Like a minute of breathing exercises 4 or 5 times a day can make a massive difference.
So true. We touched on this a little bit earlier about how that camping trip that you took with your kiddos seemed to have an expiration date. But could you elaborate more on that concept about how life's best experiences often do have expiration dates?
Yeah, there are things that I think we know they're not gonna wait forever. There's an expiration date on them, and some of them we really feel. Like if you have young kids, like you feel that passage of time. 3 years, 5 years difference, and you're like, oh, this is really different. And that stage we were in before is no longer. And so some of them we can predict. Your parents might be 70 right now, and you're like, they're pretty fit, they're pretty healthy. We could probably do like a walking tour through Ireland. But you're like, in 5 years, could we? I don't know. In 10 years, it's starting to feel unlikely. Like it's starting to feel like a gamble that this thing that we have right now will still be there in the same way and same capacity. And just like I said, our preferences change. There's things that, in my 20s, I did a month-long road trip coast to coast, Washington to Seattle and back in a month with my best friend. And it was this amazing trip. Like we stayed with friends, we slept on people's couches, like we slept in the car, we camped on the frozen ground, like our tent collapsed with snow, like we were almost trampled by bison, like really fantastic. And at 42, no desire to do that again. Like so glad I did it. So glad I did it. Don't really want to do it again. Like I stayed in a lot of youth hostels. Oh my gosh, I did like couch surfing, which was like such a thing in Europe when I lived there. Like just slept in strangers' couches, like all across Europe. It was never doing that again. So glad I did it. No, thank you. But I think there's some things we feel have an expiration date, and the reality is like, you either do the thing now or make peace with the fact you will never experience this. You will never get this memory. You will never have this opportunity again. It won't wait till you're 65. If you want to do a big road trip with your kids while they're little and like adore you so much and everything's amazing and everything's magical and they just want to be like within 5 feet of you 24 hours a day, do that now. Or just say, you know what? I'm never going to do it. And feel the depth of the regret right now.
Sure.
And then let it go. But if you're like, I'll just wait till I turn 65, it's not going to be there. Your kids aren't going to be that age. You're not going to be that age. Your parents aren't going to be that age. And so I think there's things that regret can be really powerful, but make sure you feel it early. Make sure you feel it when you can still do something about it, instead of when you're 60 and it's just crushing. So there's seasons that we know might expire. And then there's seasons that like we thought we had a lot of time and life was like, nope, you don't have a lot of time. And it sneaks up on us, like your spouse gets MS, or like you hurt your back, or your parent gets cancer and they pass away, or a child passes away. Like there's things that we thought we had a lot of time, then we didn't. And so we either had leaned in and done the cool things that we wanted to do, or then we have to live with that regret.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, life happens and throws curveballs to everyone, and you never know when that's going to happen. And
Yeah.
it's really important to think of that regret as a motivator to encourage and urge you to figure out what you actually want to do here and now, and then still planning for the future, definitely, but it's still important not to postpone and push everything off or down the road for a time that may or may not happen. I'm curious why you think it's important for those that are considering early retirement once they reach financial independence to use mini retirements beforehand to actually test those things that they may or may not want to do once they've actually retired.
Yeah, a mini retirement is such important practice. And it's funny because all of the fears and the concerns that you have for taking a month off or taking 6 months off, those don't get smaller when you're facing 40 years off. Like 40 is bigger. 40 years are bigger than 3 months. So like we should maybe practice this a little bit so we can kind of get through this learning curve. And it's so funny because I've been in the FI community a long time, 10 years now. And I've gotten to talk to lots and lots of people on the path to financial independence. And there is this narrative of like, if we think about it like a marathon, like if early retirement is a marathon, like it's this really long stretched out thing. And they're like, I'm like, cool. So if you like practiced it all, and they're like, no, I'm going to be awesome at it. Actually, I'm just going to run this marathon. And I was like, you don't want to like do a 5K first? They're like, nope, because then I might not be able to run the marathon as soon. So if I do a 5K, then that might set me back for running the marathon. And I want to run the marathon as soon as possible. And I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. So like, what are you doing to prepare for this marathon? Well, I'm going to sit at my desk for like 60 hours a week and really focus on work. But I've been like listening to podcasts about running marathons, and I've read a couple books about running marathons. So I think I'm going to basically be awesome at it. And I'm like, well, you don't want to practice though. And they're like, no, I need no practice. I'm going to do this thing I've never done, and it's going to be incredible. I'm going to crush it. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe, I don't know. Maybe it will go just like you think it will. But the reality is there's a learning curve to everything. And I know this isn't like a radical idea, but for most of us, most of the time, we're not the best at things we've never done before. Like, it takes a while to get good at stuff. And even simple things like, how do we organize our time in a way that's meaningful? We have no practice at this. Other people have been organizing our time since we went to kindergarten. So there's a little bit of practice there. How do we have boundaries with other people when our work doesn't create that boundary? There's a little bit of practice there because we don't really have a lot of practice with that. We have work. Why can't you stay at your mom's house for 3 weeks over Christmas? Sorry, Mom. Got to get back to work. And she's like, okay, cool. I understand that. If you're retired, she's like, but I don't understand. Why can't you be here for 3 weeks? And then you have to navigate that conversation all on your own. You have no work to blame. And the reality is like, this is like kind of my dark humor, but there are things that we think that we will like that we won't actually like. And there are things that we're blaming our work that we don't do, like cleaning out the garage or starting a meditation habit or learning how to run. And we say, well, it's work's fault because I'm too busy and I don't have energy. And then you get rid of work and you realize I actually just don't like running. I just don't want to clean out the garage because it's lame and boring. And you can't blame work. And you just have to sit with the reality of like, hey, I really thought I loved playing pool because I loved it when I was 21. And now like, I don't really care. And a mini retirement lets you spread out that disappointment. Don't deal with it all at once. Don't deal with like 100 disappointing things when you retire early. Deal with 5 disappointing things during each mini retirement so you can cross some of that stuff off your list. list. Like, oh, actually, running's lame and my knees don't love it and my hips don't love it and my feet think it's stupid. Okay, so I need to try something else. Like, let me find a new activity. Maybe I'm a rower. Maybe I do yoga. I don't know. But instead of dealing with all of that disappointment in one go during early retirement, like try some things out. Figure out the learning curve, get better at it, because each mini retirement, you do get better. It becomes more enjoyable. It becomes more meaningful. It's less hassle. It's less stress. There's less fear. And if you can cope with 6 months off because you did 3 months off, because you did a couple 1-month ones, then people I see who do this model, early retirement is just like the next step. It's just the next phase. You've run the 5K a bunch of times. You've done the half marathon and you're like, yeah, I'm set for a marathon. Like, I'm actually not even nervous. I think that's why people get stuck in 1 more year syndrome, because they're facing this daunting thing that they've never done. And yeah, you should be scared. Like, you're doing this daunting thing you've never done.
I absolutely love the marathon and 5K analogy. That's so wonderful. And using these mini retirements really are a way to build that muscle and incorporate that muscle so that you're able to have a reasonable and successful early retirement where you're not feeling so restless and anxious and wondering what in the world you're going to be doing with your days. So thank you so much for sharing that. All right, Jillian. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time today to share so much about how you can retire often and about your new book. It's all been super informative and definitely inspiring too for those of us that are on the path towards financial independence and thinking about building in sabbaticals throughout our career. Could you share more about where the listeners can find your book, find your podcast, connect with you on social, all the things?
Yeah, the book is available for pre-order everywhere. If you go to retireoften.com, all the things. I've got free worksheets. I've got a really unhinged newsletter. If you like randomness, like, how often do I send emails? I don't know. You don't know. It's a surprise to both of us, really. Maybe once a month.
Love
what
that.
are they
sound
about?
Like me.
Neither of us know either. I think I have a really high open rate because people are just like, wonder what this one will be about.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so you can find the book there. I've got a podcast where we have people's mini retirement stories, group coaching, free worksheets, and on retireoften.com, everything lives there. And then on social media, I'm at my name, Jillian Johnsrud.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Jillian. I really appreciate it. And
Thanks
to listeners too for taking a listen.